Victoria Police is throwing everything at trying to shut down an anti-lockdown protest planned for the weekend. The huge operation will include the suspension of part of Melbourne's public transport system for 6 hours on Saturday to make it harder for people to get into the CBD. For more, reporter Sarah Lawrence joins me now. Sarah, police have described this as the biggest operation they've conducted in decades. What more can you tell us about it?
Well, public transport will be shut down on Saturday from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. in a bid to stop protesters accessing the CBD and also to avoid a super spreader event. According to police, this is the first time it's happened and 20,000 officers will be deployed to this operation. But for those who do need to access the CBD, a permit system will still be in place. Buses will go around the CBD, trains will be halted and trams will go back to their junctions. According to police, this operation is so big because of intelligence they've received and also because at the last protest on August 21, they had around 20 officers injured and they don't want to see that again. Here's Chief Commissioner Shane Patton, on why the situation is so critical on Saturday.
This is a significant operation and it's a huge demand on policing resources, but it's one that's necessary. This is the biggest game in town for us to stop this occurring.
And Sarah, how have people responded to this, particularly civil liberty groups?
Groups like Liberty Victoria say they do not support the protests. However, they have put out a tweet saying they are concerned that Victoria Police's military-style tactics could be normalised and deployed against future responsible protests. As for anyone who wants to try access the CBD on Saturday without a valid reason, they could be facing a $5,500 fine.
Sarah Lawrence, thank you. Well, less than a week after regional Victoria was let out of lockdown, the Premier says he has no other choice than to tighten restrictions again in Ballarat. From midnight tonight, the city will go into a 7-day lockdown after the virus was detected in wastewater and 4 cases were confirmed today. Authorities believe there's probably more and that ring-fencing the Ballarat outbreak will protect the rest of regional Victoria. 2 more COVID deaths have been recorded and that includes the 46-year-old man whose death was reported yesterday. There are 423 new cases and only 149 have been linked to known outbreaks. Of the 400-odd new cases, 5 are outside of Melbourne, including those 4 in Ballarat. Here's state political reporter Bridget Rollison.
This wasn't how these Ballarat residents wanted to spend their last day of freedom. Some waiting more than 7 hours to get tested.
We've been here since 11:30, about 4 to 5 hours. We've been doing university in the car.
This is not the news the people of Ballarat want to hear, and it's not the decision that we wanted to make. But if we allow it to get away from us in one part of regional Victoria, it becomes a threat and a risk to all of regional Victoria.
4 cases means the city of Ballarat will be locked down for 7 days. But unlike in Melbourne, there's no curfew.
It's been over a week of likely transmission within the Ballarat community.
It's a blow for local businesses that have only been open for a week.
We didn't really get a great run at it. Obviously, the capacity limit.
It's been a year now since Ballarat's last positive COVID case. So on one hand, a level of complacency may have started to creep into the community.
Shepparton residents will get to exit their lockdown at midnight, meaning only Melbourne and Ballarat will be under stay-at-home orders. Vaccinations are the key to freedom and they look set to become mandatory for healthcare workers, with National Cabinet discussing on Friday how that'll work.
We'd like to see nationally consistent laws so that our big employers and our small employers can all do the right thing.
St Vincent's Health isn't waiting, making vaccinations a requirement for all staff and volunteers.
We've had more staff infections. It's the only way to go. I expect most health providers will go down this route.
There are still thousands of Victorians stranded interstate with no route to come home. The Victorian Ombudsman will launch an investigation into the state government's travel permit system after more than 80 complaints. This Melbourne couple are stuck in Coffs Harbour and can't get back to see a neurologist.
He has had a few brain bleeds following the fall he had, and so he really needs to be checked out.
Even though today's case numbers weren't as high as yesterday, the Chief Health Officer's warned they haven't yet peaked. He says we could still see the daily infections reach similar numbers as Sydney.
The risk of it getting to 1,000 is real.
Those risks didn't stop the state opposition from issuing a press release calling for lockdowns to end immediately, but it made a mistake.
Yes, I think we should be ending the lockdowns today. I think the government should announce that lockdowns should end today. The curfews. We're talking about the curfews.
Something that might be under consideration when the roadmap is announced on Sunday. Bridget Rollison, ABC News, Melbourne.
Now for more on the situation in Ballarat, we're joined by Christopher Tester. So Chris, how have people there reacted to this news today?
Well, Tamara, people have reacted simply by going out to get tested. We saw hours-long queues at testing sites in Ballarat, and that's prompted health authorities to urge people to only go forward to get tested if they have been to an exposure site or are experiencing symptoms. There's no doubt it's a bitter blow just days after the regions came out of lockdown for Ballarat business owners to find themselves straight back in there again. It's a particularly bitter blow for organisers of the Ballarat International Photo Biennale. They only opened this morning, had the first people through the door. They'd already had to reschedule once, and yet again they find themselves having to look at different arrangements because we're back into lockdown, and here's what organisers had to say.
It was pretty devastating, completely understandable of course, and we don't want to be open when there's active cases in Ballarat, but it just is a full replanning, rescheduling, reorganising, and of course most sadly reclosing.
There are now multiple new exposure sites listed on the Department of Health's website. The government has said further support will be made available to the community of Ballarat in the coming days, including thousands of extra doses of COVID-19 vaccines.
Christopher Tester in Ballarat, thank you for the update. So let's have a quick look at Victoria's vaccination rate. And just over 67% of eligible Victorians have now had one dose, and 41% are now fully vaccinated. New South Wales has become the first jurisdiction to reach the 80% first dose milestone. It means 4 out of 5 people aged 16 and over now have some protection against COVID. The Berejiklian government has promised the economy will reopen to vaccinated residents when 70% have had both shots. But it's still investigating the legalities of locking out unvaccinated people.
We will need to seek legal advice ourselves. This is uncharted territory, but what we're doing is providing as much certainty as possible.
The overnight curfew in Sydney's hotspots has been lifted. There were more than 1,200 new cases in that state today and 12 deaths.